Dangerous heat is on the way, especially in the deserts. Weather experts tell us what to expect in the days ahead. And another Trump cabinet member resigns. Why the head of the EPA was under so much scrutiny.
We are going to rely on the experience that we've had in 2014 and 2015 with the rise of unaccompanied children. We anticipate that the federal government is going to respond similarly.
The government says it will follow an order to reunite immigrant families. Local advocates tell us what they think will happen next. And the city of San Diego goes to court to try to get the SDSU expansion plan removed from the ballot. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Get ready for a heat wave. Potential record-breaking heat is expected over the next couple of days. KPBS reporter Jade Hyman talked with the National Weather Service about the importance of being prepared.
Heat is the #1 killer in the United States, over lightning, over hurricanes, over tornadoes.
A word of caution coming from the National Weather Service as temperatures are expected to reach dangerous highs over the next couple of days.
This particular heat wave is going to hit us kind of like a wall. Temperatures are going to really soar tomorrow, probably 15 degrees higher than what we're seeing or feeling right now.
Along the coast, temperatures could soar into the 90s, but not even the beach will be a safe place thanks to the remnants of Tropical Storm Fabio.
The thing we need to keep in mind is the rip current potential will be elevated. And what that means is because of the swell or the surge of waves coming in from Fabio, we're going to see more rip currents than we normally see. So dangerous swimming conditions is kind of the thing to keep in mind.
Meanwhile, inland temperatures could go above 100. Here at Cowles Mountain, even avid hikers could be caught off guard.
I've seen dehydration. Some people just can't do the heat. So if you are not used to it, then I suggest you don't do it.
What we find a lot of times with hikers is they don't have enough water. They didn't expect it to be that hot.
So while it's important for people to take all of the necessary precautions to be safe in the heat, it's also important to look out for the animals too. Here's a sign saying to not even bring the dogs out on the trail. Another sign over here says if you do decide to come out on the trail, watch out for those rattlesnakes.
In this heat, I've seen animals injured, and I've actually seen 2 die here.
For everyone's safety, some trails will be closed over the weekend. County officials are also opening cooling centers. If you are outside, water, light clothing, and sunblock are all recommended. But sometimes the best advice is simplistic.
On Friday and Saturday, it's going to be important to pretty much stay out of the heat.
Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
Now, the peak of the heat wave kicks in as we venture into Friday. Major heat. And what do I mean by that? Well, 2 sorts of advisories in effect here. One, a heat advisory, including, again, San Diego County, out toward the coastal areas, toward La Jolla, and also out toward the San Diego mountains. Now, we also have an excessive heat warning. That's a little further off toward the east, including the Santa Ana Mountains and inland areas of Orange County. And that's where the heat's going to be more so into the 100s as we venture our way into the afternoon. Still set to break a record high temperature, though, in San Diego. Some major heat Friday. Elevated fire danger, especially north. No red flag warnings in effect right now. And record high temperatures perhaps right into Saturday. High pressure's in control, so not only is it hot throughout the deserts, but we are going to bake all the way to the shoreline, again, as we go throughout the next 24 to even 48 hours. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
California laws that offer protections for undocumented immigrants are largely upheld. A federal judge in Sacramento ruled today that he will not approve a Trump administration request to block 2 laws. One requires the state to review any detention facilities that house immigrants. The other prevents local law enforcement from providing release dates and other information.
And all the sheriffs, up and down the state of California, council members, mayors, were shouting out loudly that the measure was illegal, that it was unconstitutional. I never knew what, I didn't have a clue what they were talking about because they never read the measure itself. don't know if they're lawyers themselves. And quite frankly, I think they were reciting, talking points from the White House.
The Department of Health and Human Services says it will comply with a court order to reunite immigrant children with their parents within a month. Casa Cornelia Law Center provides legal services to some of those separated children in San Diego. The nonprofit expects family reunifications will mean new family detention centers in California.
We anticipate that there will be a larger temporary detention facilities, and so we are already strategizing as to how we might be able to facilitate legal services in that type of environment.
A San Diego federal judge ordered the U.S. government to reunify families in a lawsuit filed by the ACLU. One Justice provides free legal aid to undocumented immigrants. The organization also helps low-income Californians with its Justice Bus. KQED Newsroom's Tui Vu talks to One Justice CEO Julia Wilson about her work.
On the issue of undocumented immigrants, President Trump has said there should not be due process for people who enter the U.S. illegally. What do you make of that statement?
I mean, that is just antithetical to what we are as a country and the values that we have inscribed in our Constitution. And being a country that believes in the rule of law means that our Constitution applies to everyone who is here. We don't pick and choose. There's no favoritism. The rule of law is there to protect the human rights of everyone who has foot in this country.
There's a lot of focus now on migrant families separated at the border. How is One Justice involved in this broader network of groups that are seeking to help them and other immigrants?
We're part of a national coalition of lawyers and law firms and civil rights and immigration groups that are trying to make sure that these families are reunited. The court order out of San Diego on Tuesday makes it clear they have to do that in fairly short order. The question is now, these children have been part of a national shell game, right? They disappeared and appeared in hundreds of shelters around the country. Now that they are getting legal representation, how do we make sure that as they're reunified, we don't lose sight of these children again?
So what are you doing to assist? Do you have any actual cases you're handling right now?
We are starting to see some of these children who've been separated from their parents showing up in the regular unaccompanied minor caseloads in California. So one of our core partners, Esperanza in Los Angeles, they now have a 6-year-old who was separated from her parents as a result of the zero tolerance. And we just yesterday sent out an email blast statewide trying to find some representation for her.
Okay. I want to talk about your Justice Bus program as well. It's rather innovative. It helps to bridge that gap, right, in legal aid for people who are in remote areas, rural areas of California. How does that work, and what kinds of services do you provide?
Yeah, when you map the state, there are these high concentrations of poverty in rural areas, and then all the concentration of lawyers is in the metropolitan centers. So we literally put lawyers and law students on buses, train them, get them out to rural areas, and do pop-up mobile legal clinics in 75% of the state where there are pockets of need. And so those folks focus on immigration, anything to do with folks who are able to become citizens, or DACA assistance, or just general immigration screening for folks who don't even know what their status or their possible remedies are. And then also folks who have some criminal history that's preventing them from accessing jobs or housing. How do they clean up that record and be able to move on with their lives?
We've heard about how the criminal justice system disproportionately impacts poor people and people of color. How does the civil justice system have a similar disproportionate impact on those populations?
Yeah, we know that low-income folks, and particularly communities of color, are disproportionately regulated, including in the civil justice system. So something like 3/4 of the people who need to access help through the civil justice system are people of color, in addition to being low income. And so it's incredibly important that we understand how these interlocking moments of discrimination impact these populations.
And there's a cascading effect, right? What percentage of your clients are close to the verge of homelessness? And because you have said that for many of these problems, one legal problem leads to many others.
Yeah. So all of our clients are living at 125% of the federal poverty level or lower. So these are folks who are living paycheck to paycheck. They are at extreme risk. And what happens is that if you're working at a job and your employer won't pay your overtime, and then you're having a disagreement with your landlord and you can't pay the rent, and then you can't get access for your kids kids, access to food for your kids, you're going to end up experiencing 3 to 7 civil justice system problems all at once.
And that's how their problems just keep accumulating and becomes a bigger and bigger problem. You were once a legal aid attorney for children with disabilities and their parents. What did that experience show you about the justice system for disabled and low-income people?
Yeah, the thing I think I learned so much from my clients was that there is this incredible barrier to accessing help, and that without a lawyer sitting shoulder by shoulder with them, even these parents who were fierce advocates for their children, they needed the voice of a lawyer to amplify their efforts. But when we worked together with their advocacy and their understanding and my access to the legal system, we could literally transform the lives of their children.
And that's the experience that you bring now to your work at One Justice. Julia Wilson, thank you so much.
Woodruff tonight on the NewsHour. EPA Chief Scott Pruitt resigns. The ethics complaints that led to his resignation and what's next for the agency. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The final vote count in 2 San Diego City Council races is showing razor-thin results. In District 4, Monica Montgomery pulled out an upset. She finished ahead of Councilwoman Myrtle Cole by just 6 votes. This is shaping up to be the most competitive council race in November. In District 8, it's an even closer margin that decides who will advance into the runoff against Vivian Moreno. Antonio Martinez finished ahead of Christian Ramirez by just 3 votes. This is an open seat due to term limits on Councilmember David Alvarez. Voters will also be asked what to do with the Mission Valley Stadium site. As Eric Anderson reports, the city is asking a judge to remove one of the measures from the ballot.
San Diego City Attorney says she's disappointed with Judge Randa Trapp's tentative ruling on the petition to remove the SDSU West measure from the November ballot. That initiative is asking the city to sell about 130 acres of Mission Valley Stadium land so SDSU can build an auxiliary campus. Elliott argued the measure violates the city charter, state law, and the state education code.
There is no precedent for a citizens initiative to be used to force a municipality to sell its land. There's nothing on the books.
The judge wasn't convinced the issues needed to be decided before voters get a chance to weigh in. The city and SDSU West attorneys were in court to give the judge additional items to consider. Trapp is expected to issue a final ruling soon. Meanwhile, city officials are also challenging the legality of the Soccer City initiative, that measure looking to redevelop the Mission Valley Stadium site to lure a Major League Soccer franchise to San Diego. Elliott also wants that measure pulled from the ballot. A hearing is scheduled for next Friday. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency has resigned. Scott Pruitt was at the center of repeated controversies over his travel spending, ethics, and use of government resources. President Trump announced the resignation this afternoon and said Pruitt has done an outstanding job. Pruitt has been criticized by environmental groups for rolling back regulations. Earlier this week, Canada enacted new tariffs on U.S. goods, including steel. It's in retaliation to tariffs imposed by President Trump. AP reporter John Moan profiles a Texas company hoping to be spared the extra fees.
So we came up with an idea that all you guys are voting age.
Joel Johnson told his employees to throw a rhetorical Hail Mary.
And basically it says, President Trump, Baytown, Texas needs your help.
He's hoping everyone at his company, Boresun Management Pipe U.S., can lobby President Trump, Congress, and the state of Texas about newly imposed tariffs on foreign steel.
We figure somewhere between $25 and $35 million a year, which is a huge increase in our cost.
By writing postcards and sending a message to those in power, protectionism may hurt their jobs.
If it doesn't work, we'll just try something else or try again.
And I'm hoping that we can get some sort of exemption from it.
Johnson is looking for an exemption from the 25% tariffs. He's the CEO of this company with Turkish roots. It makes steel pipe used by energy companies to pull oil and natural gas out of the earth. Touring the Baytown, Texas factory, Johnson showed us that Boresun uses a lot of American steel coils to make its pipes, but some of it has to be imported too.
There's an
enough uncertainty in everything else that we do, let alone just political macro uncertainty.
About 80 miles away in Bay City, global steel conglomerate Tenaris churns out seamless pipe in a $1.8 billion facility it opened in 2017. It imports solid rods of steel known as billets from Tenaris mills in Mexico, Romania, Italy, and Argentina. It's also seeking exemption from the steel tariff.
And so we are waiting for them to come to a conclusion, and we are positive we're going to get a good conclusion.
Showing the Associated Press the factory, Tenaris' U.S. executive was confident their request will be met.
But in the end, we adapt to what the administration is requiring.
And more than 250 miles northeast, unionized employees at a U.S. steel plant in Lone Star, Texas, supported Trump's tariffs, while remaining skeptical about his commitment to blue-collar workers.
If we see something as far as labor from the president, I will count us blessed for it. I just don't know that that's his end game.
Pipe mills are numerous in Texas, which leads the U.S. in oil and gas production. U.S. Steel, a domestic producer, backs the tariff, which recently came up in Congress, putting the U.S. Commerce Secretary on the defensive, claiming it would create jobs.
Idled steel and aluminum capacity is being restarted as we sit here in Illinois, Ohio, South Carolina, Missouri, and Kentucky.
Many multinational plants import steel for pipe manufacturing because they say they cannot get the type or quantity they need from U.S. producers. So the mills are among the thousands of companies that filed exclusion requests with the Commerce Department. And that worries the union workers.
And that's one of my biggest fears. You put these tariffs, but now you're going to exclude everybody, so they're kind of pointless.
Their fear is Borison's faint hope that the president will see those postcards.
And we're promising, if we get this 2-year exemption, to immediately start building the factory.
And take the heat off the company's bottom line. Because some economists believe tariffs in steel and aluminum would trigger the loss of more than 40,000 jobs alone in the state. John Moen, Associated Press, Baytown, Texas.
A day after big crowds at local beaches, it was all about cleanup this morning. Volunteers with the Surfrider Foundation and other groups turned out to collect trash left behind on the 4th of July. Cigarette butts and plastic are the most common items picked up by volunteers.
Our goal here is to really build that awareness on single-use plastics and packing it in and packing it out. So thinking about what you're bringing to the beach and making sure that you're taking it back with you. Really focusing on using reusables as opposed to water bottles and red Solo cups and all that stuff that may just be left behind.
Cleanups were held at Ocean Beach, Pacific Beach, Mission Bay, and Oceanside. The Surfrider Foundation says it collected nearly 1,500 pounds of trash today. As we mentioned earlier in this newscast, a heat wave is expected beginning tomorrow. Justin Pavic has tonight's forecast.
Well, the heat continues to take center stage as we go throughout the next 24 to 36 hours. Along with that, we're talking about high surf, major heat. Well, how about record high temperatures? Could see some changes, though. You want to stay tuned for that extended forecast coming up. So we talk about major heat. What does that mean? Well, there are some advisories and warnings currently in effect, and you're looking at two colors here where you see the orange color. That is going to be a heat advisory, and that again is for extremely high temperatures. More so, this is going to be for Riverside, San Diego County Mountains, orange, and also the San Diego coastal areas, the excessive heat warning for Friday, and the red shaded areas for inland Orange County, the deserts, the valleys, and also the Santa Ana Mountains. Many spots there over 100 degrees. High surf advisories also in effect here, where we are talking about the potential for a surf of 6 to even 8 feet. So again, talking about the high surf conditions being a concern for some choppiness out there on the waters as well. All that aside, we're not talking about any rain for tonight, but a warm one. Overnight low near 70. But look at this in Borrego Springs, 83. That definitely puts it into a perspective. And check it out here as we venture into Friday. The core of the heat really cranking now. Dominant area of high pressure just sitting and sizzling many areas, not only throughout the deserts, but also toward the shoreline and over the mountainous terrain. Outside chance for a stray thunderstorm over some of the valley locations, the mountains, the deserts. Most areas here dry and very hot. Borrego Springs 114, San Diego 88, set to break a record high temperature. And we'll likely do that again here as we talk about Saturday's weather. And then we'll start to see the flow, not so much offshore as we venture down the road. And that will chip back at the heat some here Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday with high temperatures more so in the low to mid 80s. Inland, it's very hot the next couple of days, but more bearable as we venture into early week. As we talk about mountainous locations, 70s return by Tuesday. There could be a few storms around with some monsoonal moisture. Yeah, that's right. Some changes coming up here down the line. And over the deserts, extremely hot here the next couple of days. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic. Back to you, Ebony.
Sacramento State University has found a way to bring music education to underserved communities. PBS Northern California has this story on the String Project.
The String Project is a program in which children, typically 3rd through 7th graders, study violin and cello from the beginning with university students. The university students are trained in teaching children by master teachers.
Stop. You can't be behind.
Because we have world-class string teacher trainers as our master teachers, we're training the children to play the instruments really well and effectively.
So I play violin, and I've been playing ever since I was 5 years old. So I started at a very young age, and I grew a big passion for it around my preteen years. I decided to go into music because I didn't see myself in any other career, and I saw myself growing in this major.
I'm professor of cello and chamber music here at Cal State Sacramento School of Music, and I am the founder and the director of the String Project. There is nationwide a severe shortage of teachers because there has been so much cuts to art funding and education, and that's what started the String Project movement. The Cal State Sacramento String Project is part of a national consortium of string projects. There are about 35 of these at universities around the U.S. Our program is one of 2 or 3 that focuses on offering the opportunity for kids from underserved backgrounds to get lessons.
On a personal level, I have always felt that the arts are an important thing. In the area that I work, in the Robles School District, which is a very high poverty part of the city of Sacramento, our student population is over 90% free and reduced. That's the federal poverty level. And that becomes a characteristic of certain aspects of their lives, one of which is that their parents do not have the resources to take them to musical instrument lessons. One of our goals in the district is to give our students a variety of experiences that enrich their lives, and that enhances their language development. We see a strong connection there. And there's a lot of research about the brain and the effect of music and the arts on the brain. We offer to pay the registration fees, either through district funds or the Education Foundation for the first 2 semesters. And then we also have now purchased instruments that the district owns that we can loan to our students at no cost.
I actually started in a program pretty similar to this. Coming from a program like this, it's always been rooted in me to do the same, to be able to allow kids to have the same opportunities that I did growing up, because I know that a lot of kids don't. And I feel very, very fortunate because everything I got for free, and I know that a lot of people struggle to pay for the cost of music.
We typically have about 80 children studying in the String Project. That's 20 or so from Robles, so that's about a quarter of the children in the program. And the rest come from anywhere and everywhere.
My son is Caden, and he's 10, and he's been playing the violin. This is his 2nd year in the String Project.
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's cool because I might go here one day
and it's cool to see lots of other kids.
I think the kids are gaining a lot of inspiration because some of them will go on to be doctors, lawyers, or engineering majors. Not all of them are going to go into music, but I feel like music inspires them to work hard, to never give up, and to, keep striving for their goals and their aspirations.
It's life-changing for some of these families. There's no way in the world they would have had a chance to have violin or cello or get to know the music of Mozart or Beethoven, and these families are really excited about what it's doing for their children.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, a look at the sacrifices people make to own a small piece of the California dream. Sometimes it means an extreme commute. And on Midday Edition, after last year's hepatitis outbreak, the city is putting out a warning on a new health risk for the homeless population. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.